Hello, everyone, and welcome back to You Are Your Business podcast. And I'm excited to be chatting with Catherine Graham, who is a gifted intuitive psychic medium and energy healer. She has the ability to guide individuals toward deeper self awareness, meaningful connections with others, and has a profound connection with the spiritual realm. She specializes in helping people unlock their hidden messages embodied in the patterns of their lives. Through her work, Catherine fosters a deep understanding of oneself, relationships, and empowers others to navigate their journey with clarity, purpose, and authenticity. Welcome, Catherine. I'm so excited to be chatting with you today.
And thank you for having me on here.
Absolutely. I was just saying before we hit record, this is a role reversal because I hopped on with you before during one of your series, and I was like, you need to come on my podcast. So I love that the power of the internet and the power of connection, right? To be able to do
Yes.
this. So, yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. So yeah, why don't you share a little bit more about kind of like what you do? I know I gave like kind of a brief description, but why don't you share for our listeners kind of a bit more about you?
Yeah. So, as you just said, I am a psychic medium and energy healer. And with that, it comes with a lot of different certifications. And essentially, what I do to help people is really guide them back into their own hearts because we all know our own inner wisdom. We all carry that inner wisdom with us. But for many of us, throughout life, throughout experiences, we've been taught to disconnect from what our heart knows to be true. And so we start listening to all of the loudness outside of us. And a lot of times when clients are coming to me, they're in a state of struggle or a state of suffering in some sort. And sometimes they'll know intuitively what it is they need to do, but the mind gets so loud and all of the other messages from around the world get so loud that they don't know how to actually tune into their hearts.
Absolutely. And I think it's so amazing the work that you do because you said it comes with a lot of certifications, but I feel like that's a lot of tools that you're
Yes.
able to like draw on and you can really individualize like what that person needs in that moment or throughout the sessions that you're working with them.
Exactly. Because I know in my experience, a lot of people will come through my door for a reading, right? And
Yep.
psychic mediumship, tarot readings, these have been around for centuries. So people are like, I know what this is. This is, the answer that I need. And a lot of times in those answers, it's like, well, we could do some energy healing on this block, or we could do a session on this specific limiting belief or whatever it might be. So you can start to see what the energetic patterns are that a person is carrying with them. And when they've got those energetic patterns, sometimes it doesn't matter what we're doing in the mind or even if we're listening to the heart. If we've got, say, a limiting belief that says, I'm not worthy, it doesn't matter how hard you're working towards that goal. If I'm not worthy is running the show, it's going to be that much harder. So you've got to get that cleared out. So yeah, with the certifications, it helps to have all these tools in a toolbox and to be able to share those with those who don't necessarily have those tools.
Absolutely. And even like you said, we're a lot of times coming to you and we have like all the noise and the chaos happening and so many people don't realize it's within and that you're just sounds like you're drawing that out of them like they already know the answer but you're just amplifying and supporting them with like discovering that and working through that too.
And exactly. And for a lot of people, it seems to be once I voice it, they're like, "Ah, that's exactly it. Though that's
Yes.
exactly the feeling. That's the words that I was looking for, and I just didn't have access to them. So it's really like an excavation of their soul and allowing all of that to come up and to be witnessed.
Yes, and you're really giving a voice to what it is that
Yeah.
needs to come out and to be heard and that's been just waiting for somebody to draw that out of them.
Yes, exactly. And I find a lot of times when you talk about that voice just wanting to be heard, so often it's an egoic voice. And
Yeah.
when I say ego, I don't mean like ego, this is bad and we need to get rid of it. I actually see the ego as a wounded part of us, a part of us
Yeah.
that's had an experience that's told us something about ourselves that's not actually the truth, but it comes in and it starts kind of running its own narrative and its own directive. And when that voice isn't heard, or when we kind of disregard it, the voice starts to get louder. It's kind of like having kids, right? If you have a
Yes.
young child and the child's like, Mom, Mom, and you're like, okay, 1 second, I'm busy, they're going to keep going, Mom, Mom, Mom.
Until eventually you either like blow up or do something about it, right? So,
Exactly. And the
yes.
moment that you stop and you go, Yes, honey, what would you like? How can I help? Maybe it's just they want a pack of crayons, or maybe they just want a snack or whatever. But then you actually have 20 minutes of peace. So when those voices are coming up inside of us, most of us go, Oh, this has to go away.
Right.
But really, we need to turn to it and go, yes, honey, what do you need? You
Absolutely.
know?
Yes, and really nurturing that for us
Yes.
because it is gonna continue to keep coming up, and it always comes up in, like, the worst timing. I feel like as well
Always.
too, so it's always like, "Why am I having a breakdown in Starbucks right now?" I don't know why, it's just coming out of me, right?
Well,
So
and that's just it, because if we don't give ourselves that space to really hear what those inner thoughts and those inner stories are as they're coming up, they do start to come out at the most inopportune times. It's like a
yes.
volcano ready to bust. And so we might have someone say at Starbucks that cuts in line in front of us, and we start yelling at them. But really, it's a 2-year-old us that's been completely ignored for the past 30 something years that's
Yes.
going, damn it, I want someone to listen to me now, you know?
Yes. And I feel like a lot of this happens, like, with having children, like, I have 2 young children right now, and I feel like as much as I'm parenting them, I feel like I'm also parenting that, like, younger version of myself right now, but also trying
Yes.
to, like, not project, like, my own wounds onto the oh, it's such a complicated
It
process, right?
absolutely is. And I've no, so in our family, we're a blended family. We have 7 children between the two of us. So, and the kids right now range from 12 to 31. The oldest
Yeah.
just turned 31 today. So we've got a
Happy
very,
birthday, you've got yes.
yes. So we've got this really big, wide range. And what I started to notice with each of the kids is as they're at different ages, I see myself at their ages. And it's
Yes.
triggering back all these memories that I thought, I'd dealt with well or had gotten over or whatever. But every age will trigger a new memory. And
Yes.
so these kids are such a perfect reflection for us to be able to heal ourselves, but also to
Absolutely.
create something better for them that our parents weren't able to do for us. Most of
Right.
the time, I realize we all still make mistakes.
Right, and I think we're all doing the best we can in the moment, but the fact that, like, working with someone like yourself is able to give us some of those tools so we can do the healing within ourselves, so we're not repeating that pattern or that cycle
Yeah.
with our own family.
Yeah, because a lot of times those patterns and those cycles, I know in my family's experience, my mom, she experienced a lot of physical abuse.
Yeah,
Okay. And so her breaking the pattern was to not have the physical abuse, but there was still a lot of anger.
right.
Right. And so
Yep.
then I'm going, okay, well, I'm not going to have anger. So anytime I had anger show up, I'd start punishing
You try to do
myself.
the reverse of it, yes.
Yes. And so it's understanding beyond what the actual physical experience was, but understanding the energy that comes behind it as well. Because when
Right,
it comes to breaking those patterns, you want to get to what is the emotion that's driving this pattern throughout the family line? What is the emotion that's driving this characteristic to continue to show up? And sometimes we can actually hinder ourselves more by going, anger is not okay. So now I have to be all love and light. No, I need
right,
to honor my anger and I need to honor my love and find a new way to express anger that's not as harsh,
right. And
because I
that
could
both
say
emotions are okay, right? So,
yes,
yeah,
yes, there's no such thing as a good emotion or a bad emotion. They're just
yeah,
emotions. I always kind of compare emotions to like the weather. There's not
yes,
good weather or bad weather. The weather is just weathering as weather does.
yes, and it's
Today,
sorry,
sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah, no, no.
No, I was just going to say, today we had a lot of snow coming down. It's like sunny and clear right now. There's a lot of snow coming down, and I could have been like, oh, this is the worst day ever because the snow is coming down and snow is bad and snow is cold.
Yeah.
Or I can just put on my winter gear and head on outside, you know?
Absolutely, and that's such a good analogy and, like, perspective for people too, because it's really the weather is what it is, it's how you what you make of it type of
Exactly.
thing. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. So
So,
how did you get started with all of this? Like, what even got you on this, like, have you always known you were an intuitive? Like, where did this all begin
Uh,
kinda thing?
so I had intuitive hits as a child, but did not realize that they were intuitive hits until I was much older. It wasn't until I was actually raising my three young, or they're my three oldest, but they were younger back then. So I had 3 kids under the age of 5 at home,
Right.
and I was feeling really kind of stuck in my life. And I happened across a TV show called Starting Over. And it was with Robin Burns and Iyanla Van Zant. And they were these 2 life coaches living in a house with 8 women. And they were life coaching these women through these different changes that they were having in their lives. And I became obsessed with the show. Every day at 10 o'clock, I was like, this is mommy's time.
Mommy needs to tune into this show. Like,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. And so I started using the life coaching strategies that they were using in the show on myself and started to do a lot of my own inner healing work. So I was about 23 years old at the time, but I started having babies when I was 18. So
Yeah.
um, I didn't have a lot of opportunity to heal prior to having babies. And I
Right.
had a lot of stuff that I needed to heal. So that's essentially what got me started. And I got a certification in life coaching about 2 years later, and I was like, I'm going to be a life coach. But when you kind of step into any of this spiritual realm, energetic
Yes.
stuff, it's almost like one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. And so,
Yes. It's like you're cracked wide open and it's just
yes.
one thing. Absolutely.
Yes, and it's like that part of you that once believed in like the magic of the world kind of comes out again and it's like, well, let
Yep.
me try this and this and this. And so it was really about healing myself first. And then it was about 3 years after, yeah, about 3 years after that that I actually started going, actually, I can do this for others as well, and I can get paid to do
Yes.
this for others as well. And so that's when I started my business, and here we are 16 years later and
That's
just doing the thing.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So do you find you have a lot of like entrepreneurs come to you, or is it kind of like a mixture of people that come?
It's a mixture. I have clients as young as 16 years old, all the way up
Oh,
to 89 years old was the
oh,
oldest lady that I
wow.
worked with. So I work with entrepreneurs, I work with moms, I work with men, I work with single women. Just really, it's people who are experiencing life.
Yeah.
I know you're supposed to have a target market when it comes to business, but I've always been
But
like, people who are struggling. That's who I want to
want
serve.
support, right. Well,
Yeah,
and I also feel like it's also people that have more of that newfound awareness and that are open to like the spiritual side of things because not everyone's necessarily always open to that side of things. So I think
yeah,
sometimes it's your niche is in that, like, I'm here to support you in other ways too, kind of thing.
absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting because I've had a lot of clients that have come to me and have said to me, "You're I'm coming to you as my last resort. I've
That's
tried
typically,
this,
yep.
this, this, and this, and none of this has worked. So now you're my last resort." Perfect.
No pressure, right?
I'm always like, whatever this is meant to be is what it's meant
Exactly.
to be.
Yes.
So, yeah.
No, and it's always interesting because at that point like people really they're ready to make that change. I feel like
Yes.
too because their backs up against a wall and they're like this is my last resort. You're like, "Okay, you're ready now."
Yes, because a lot of times we have to get so uncomfortable with the way our life is in order for us to actually commit to a change,
Yes.
right? Because you can, kind of sit in this whittle waddle of just, I don't know, maybe, maybe, maybe forever.
Right.
You could live the same year every year for 20 years and not change anything and not like it.
Yes.
Right. But sometimes when you're in that deep uncomfortability, I find a lot of times it actually breaks people open to come back to themselves, right? Because we become so hard to who we are. We
Yes.
become so afraid of actually showing ourselves authentically, of showing what our gifts are, what our talents are, who we are as people. And in that uncomfortability, it allows us to kind of, can I swear?
Yeah, you could swear.
Okay.
Yeah.
To just basically be like, fuck it.
Yes.
I'm just going to break open here. I've got no other
Yep.
choice. And when you finally break open, you discover so much goodness that's been underneath the surface for so long that's just wanting to be revealed.
And to be your true authentic self,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
doing what makes you passionate and what makes you angry and all of the things and the emotions and the feelings and behind it.
Yeah. And to own it without apology, to be like, yeah, this is who I am, you know?
Yes. And so with it being the new year, do you find that you typically have like a lot of people coming in being like, okay, it's 2025 now, like I'm ready to make that change? Or like, how does that kind of, what's your
So,
thoughts, I guess, around like new year, new you type of approach to
so
things?
I mean, to me, any day can be a new
Yep,
year, new you. And
absolutely.
I myself, I like to create an intention for the year that I can kind of return to as I go through the year to go, okay, am I still holding on to this intention, and what does this look like for me now as I go through it? Do I see an up level of clients in January because new year, new me? Not necessarily. Okay.
Right.
I find a lot of people are so over resolutions.
Fair
They're
enough.
so
Yeah.
over being told you need to hustle, you need to get started on January 1st,
Yeah.
you need to change everything in a day. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have in society is that you're supposed to make these massive changes, but a lot of massive changes actually happens in really small increments of change. So 1% better today over
Yes.
time is going to become 100% better. But a lot of people go from 0 to 100 thinking, I need to make this leap. But we actually have to kind of acclimate. No.
I know the word you're trying to say. I can't spit it out either, but our
Okay.
listeners, you know what we're talking about here. Yeah.
Yeah. We need to acclimatize, I feel.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Our nervous system to be able to handle the changes that we're creating. Otherwise, we'll actually self destruct or we'll self sabotage ourselves. Um, if you use, like, say, dieting culture or something as an example, if you go, I'm going to have zero sweets and zero fats and no McDonald's and la da da da
Yeah.
da for the next year, most likely by Friday, you're going to be sneaking a chocolate or something. But if you go, I'm only going to allow myself, say, one sweet a day or
Yeah.
one treat a day or whatever, that might be a lot easier.
More sustainable. And actually, kind of
Yes.
like you said, that 1% like increment that you're changing, as opposed to that all or nothing type of mentality that society tends to bring out in people sometimes too, or tell them that they should
Yeah.
be too.
Yeah. And to release, I think, the judgment on ourselves when it comes to those resolutions or those intentions that we create for ourselves, that you have to create habits. And when we break free of what those habits are, sometimes we're going to fall back into them. And if we
Yeah.
start judging them, then there's a part of us that actually starts to become resistant to what the change is because now we're getting in trouble in our own
Yes.
minds
Yes.
for what we should have been doing better instead of just loving on ourselves and even understanding, like, what is the wound that's coming up that's making me go back into these old patterns.
Yes. And so do you find it's helpful for people to like have reflective time for this? Like how, because say someone comes up and they're like, okay, I'm starting to have this feeling. They come to you for support. Like they also be, I know I'm asking you a bunch of questions in once. I'm trying to figure out how
It's
I'm trying to
okay.
form it. But yeah, is it like monthly taking some reflective time? Like how do people kind of start to like work through what they want and try to make these changes?
Honestly, I would encourage people to use every moment they can as reflection time.
Okay.
Okay. So if you've got a response that's coming up that you're like, don't really know. Take some time to
Yeah.
reflect on it. And if reflection seems too much, because I know typically in my mind, when I think of reflection, I'm sitting by myself, I've got my
Yes.
eyes closed, I'm tuning
Got my
within.
journal, got my like my
Yes,
crystals and everything. Yeah.
exact. And it requires a period of time, which
Right.
means that we would almost resist it because now I need to create time to do this.
Right.
But in the moment, if you just allow yourself to get curious, why am I reacting this way? Why am I choosing this right now? What emotion is coming up in me right now that I'm trying to either stuff down or I'm
Right.
trying to express? And in that moment of curiosity, then you kind of open the door for change to start to happen, right? But if you
Yes.
go, I need to work on this and I'll set off some time on Friday at 1 p.m. and I'm going to, focus on it then, you're probably not going to get as clear of answers.
Right. Well,
Okay.
you've already kind of like bypassed it, right? So you
Yeah.
didn't allow it to happen in the moment and you've now scheduled it, which a lot of times in our mind we kind of downplay whatever the emotion or thought or situation was that was happening, right?
Yeah,
Too.
yeah. And again, I reflect it back to raising kids in the
Yeah.
moment when a child's throwing a temper tantrum. We don't go,
Yeah.
I'm going to schedule some time with you on Friday at 1. We'll deal with
Very
this then, right? We
That's
get
not an
curious.
answer they're gonna like.
No, we allow ourselves to get curious with them. What's bothering you? What's coming
Yes.
up? And sometimes it's just about shifting their direction over here to help them see that they're okay. And sometimes they need to be nurtured in that moment. And for us to give that same kind of compassion to ourselves, that same curiosity to ourselves,
Yes.
it really helps a lot more than scheduling that time to reflect. And I think it's still good to do that, to commit time to yourself.
Right.
But in the moment, when life is happening, that's the best time to get compassionate and to get curious about what am I actually experiencing right now.
Well, and I guess that would also be when like the best lessons and the best change start to happen because you can do it right in that moment as
Yeah.
opposed to again kind of like, okay, the next time this situation happens, I'm going to approach it this way, which as we know that doesn't always happen because
Yeah.
you haven't tried to change it right in that moment.
Yeah. And I mean, I totally honor the fact too that sometimes in the moment, you're reacting in anger and you're not like you're not even thinking about, oh, I should get curious about my anger. You're
Right.
like, "Ugh," you know,
Yes.
you're ready to punch someone or whatever it might be.
Yes.
But the moment you've got that chance to just kind of take a breath, that's when you can get curious about it, you know? And
Yes.
again, to not go into guilt, to not to go into shame or judgment of anything that's happened or any ways that you've expressed yourself, but to just allow yourself to get curious about it.
Yes. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that too. So, is there any type of like transformation that you're able to share that you've kind of helped like clients through? Any fun stories?
Um, I tend to call myself the Reiki pregnancy lady. I've helped a
Oh
lot
my
of women
goodness. Yes.
with getting pregnant when they've been struggling with getting pregnant by clearing a lot of energy and whatnot from the uterus, which has been a really cool experience. I've got 7 Reiki babies right now that are alive on this earth walking around that I,
That
I don't want to
that's
say
ama
that it's
I
just me,
know,
but
but it's like a co-creation type of yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing. I just thought I'll tell you after we're done recording. I have someone in mind that I think would benefit from that too. So yeah, that's
awesome,
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been a lot of really great shifts for people in helping them to step into their business and starting a business, following that gift that they have,
Yeah.
and moving through the confidence kind of barriers that people run up against when it comes to starting a business. Um, and then helping people with releasing the past, whether it's past traumas, past abuses, past experiences, the emotions, everything
Yeah,
that
the
we've been talking
attachment
about.
to it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really where I get genuinely like excited is
Yeah.
about helping people release that and to see that clarity that comes through them when they're no
Yes.
longer holding on to what that pain from the past has been and now it's everything starts to shift for them.
Absolutely. And I even just think, from the entrepreneurial side, I feel like so much of our stuff is like thrown right out to us because, once you become an entrepreneur, a lot of times you're putting yourself out there. You don't necessarily always have the confidence. Some things that you thought like, money trauma, whatever the case may be, all tend to like kind of come rushing at you during when you first start a business too. And then you start to have that self-doubt and all the things that kind of come along with that too.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's just like having kids, right? Is
Yes.
starting a business is like having a baby and everything's going to get thrown up into your face and the confidence piece. If you get, a great review, we all get so excited. Oh, look at me, I've got
Yes.
this great review. And if you get a bad review, oh my gosh, I might as well quit. Look, I got this one
Yes.
bad review. And so we can start to kind of value ourselves based on the performance that we're doing.
Right.
And that has nothing to do with our worthiness.
Right. But so often we put our worthiness into, again, going back to that external factor of if
Yeah.
people like me, don't like me. It's almost like going back to that inner child again, right? Was I liked, not liked? It's the same within our business too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it it can be so um so heartbreaking for those who are in business when they feel like they're failing their clients or they feel like, I've seen some businesses that have gotten 1-star reviews from people who don't even work with the business or
Right.
know the business. And it's like, taking their ratings down and everything. And so
Right.
it takes a lot of courage to run a business. It takes a lot
It
of courage to
does.
put yourself out there to share your voice with people, especially in a world where there's so much cancel culture,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know?
And so much noise in this
Yes,
world at times too, right?
so
So,
much noise. And there's been a lot of sharing on social media right now of, you only have 50 people like your post and you feel kind of bad on yourself, but then they show a picture of 50 people. And what would that look like to actually
yes.
speak to a group of 50 people or 1,000 people or 10 people? And it's another actual kind of passion of mine is that all it takes is one person. If you can shift
Absolutely.
one person, if you can help one person, you've done your work.
Absolutely.
you
I
know?
agree with that. And you never know the power of one person too, right? Because you don't know, maybe that person isn't looking for your support right now, but they might know three other people that actually are like
Exactly.
earlier when you were saying you have Reiki babies. I'm like, I know somebody right there that would benefit from this, right? So like,
Yeah,
even though I'm done having babies, doesn't mean that I don't know somebody else that is looking for it, right? So
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And it's really about planting the seeds.
Yes.
And just sharing yourself is really planting the seeds out there and see what grows.
Absolutely. And knowing that it's okay to shift with the
Oh,
season and what feels, I think that's probably another part that comes up, I'm
oh,
sure as well too, like
100% because like I said when I started I was just doing life coaching.
yeah,
And then life coaching shifted into hypnosis. Hypnosis took me into past life regression. Past
yes,
life regression took me into Reiki. Reiki took me into a bunch of different energy heal. Like it's just kind
yes,
of went like this. And so yeah, I've got this umbrella of all these certifications and all these different tools. Some of them I just don't use anymore. Some of
right.
them I'm like, "It doesn't really resonate with me anymore." But that's okay. I used to
Abs
judge myself on that, going, you got to find your niche, you've got to stick with it. But if I stick with something that no longer resonates, I'm no longer honoring me.
Absolutely, and people feel that
Yeah,
energy as well too, right? So not only are you not honoring you, you're not helping people in a way that feels good to you
yeah,
and feels good to them as well too.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yes. So do you have any advice for somebody who's maybe just starting to begin their spiritual journey? Um, I know there's been some people that, are just kind of starting out and kind of like we talked about how they might have a block or something coming up, but like where does one even kind of begin?
So it's going to
It's
be
a loaded question.
it is. It's going to be a very individual kind of journey.
Yeah.
And I would advise anybody first to not take it too seriously.
Okay.
Okay, allow yourself to have fun with it. Don't judge
Yes.
it. Keep your ego in check. I know a lot of times when people step into a spiritual journey, it's almost like I'm greater than thou now because I know this thing or
Right.
whatever it might be. And yeah, you know it, but there's still
However,
more learning to do, right?
yes.
And to understand that stepping into a spiritual journey isn't a means to an end.
Right.
Okay, you're kind of opening Pandora's box.
Yes, you
And
are.
so allowing yourself to just continue to grow and to evolve into that and make it personal for you. So just because someone tells you you need to use these crystals doesn't mean you need to use these crystals. If it doesn't resonate, it doesn't resonate. Just because someone tells you you have to do this ritual every full moon or else does not mean you have to do it every full moon or else. It's really find what works for you that you will continue to show up to do that thing that works for you. I know some people who love yoga. I do enjoy yoga. Have I ever committed to it for 30 days at a time? I haven't. I don't love
Right.
it that much. I use it when I use it. It's the same with crystals. I love crystals, but I'm not going to use them every day. For myself, I'd rather do the inner work
Yep.
than use a crystal to make me love myself. I want to
Right.
do the inner work to love myself.
Well, again, it kind of goes back to using that external. Now you're using that crystal in order to feel love for yourself, right?
Yes. And I will admit, too, when I
Yeah.
first started my spiritual journey, I was very much about I need to have these crystals
Yeah.
in order to be able to do my work. And I need to, have this certification before I can really push myself forward or whatever. And so it became a lot of the external stuff, but now it was in a spiritual sense. So it felt
Yes.
better, but it still was actually the same repeated pattern of looking for that external instead of going within myself.
Yes. And I think you have a community as well too. So would that probably be something that would be beneficial for people as well as like joining other like-minded individuals too?
So, yes, I do have a community. It's the Light Seekers Collective. It's a monthly membership program, and we meet about 6 times a month for healing circles and for sharing and for meditation. And it's really a wonderful community where we're healing lots of old crap, and it's just awesome. I love doing it.
Yes.
Um, but yes, to join other like-minded people. Um, that can help support what your journey is and also open your mind to other things that are out there. Sometimes I find just hearing other people's stories and what their experiences are can help us to make sense of what our own experiences have been. Um, and at the same time, I want to say don't just surround yourself with like minded people.
True.
You
Yeah.
know, and I know a lot of people as they step into the spiritual journey, they're like, they're toxic, they're a narcissist, they've got to
Right.
go, they're too
Now we
negative,
start
whatever.
labeling and doing, yeah,
Yeah, and the more we can allow ourselves to fully accept and fully love everybody for who they are and what
yeah,
kind of character they're playing in our lives, I think the more fulfilled our spiritual journey actually looks. Because if you can look at someone that perhaps you think is a narcissist,
yeah,
okay, and you can go, can I love this person? Can I remember the God that's within this person? It's not always easy,
yeah.
but can
But it's
I?
there. Can, yeah. Remembering
Because
there is good within that person. Yeah.
yeah, there's good within every person,
Yes.
right? And sometimes they need someone else to see that in them to remember themselves that they too are a good person.
Right. And I think also it brings up the point about everyone's always on like a different journey, right? So maybe with you now having this journey, like you never know what you could bring out of this person as well too, and be like a leader and an inspiration to them as well too.
Absolutely. And one other thing I'll quickly discuss with you is like if we have met someone and we thought they're a jerk,
Yeah.
so we kind of put this kind of umbrella over top of them and go, they're a jerk. Then we might tell everybody else that we know that person is a jerk. Now everybody's seeing that this person is a jerk.
Yes.
Right? Can they grow outside of being a jerk? They
Such a
can.
good point.
We've
Yeah.
labeled them as that, and then we continue to see them as that because our mind will have to look for more proof to go, this person's a jerk.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But if we can take that umbrella off and again, allow ourselves to get curious to go, okay, so I thought this person was a jerk. What else can I discover about them?
That, or maybe they're even mirroring something within ourselves that
Oh,
we don't even aren't even realizing too, right?
Absolutely. Sometimes it is an absolute reflection of us or a reflection of a part of us that we've disregarded completely and said, I cannot be that in the world because that's
Yeah.
unlovable. Right. But sometimes we do actually need to be jerks.
Yes, there's true. There's points and times in our lives that we do need that aspect of us to come out.
Yes. And it's not something to disregard or to hide in the shadows. That comes down into that shadow work of really loving and embracing every part of ourselves. Um, we sometimes need to be a jerk and we need to love that about ourselves too, that we've got that energy within us. We can stick up for ourselves,
Yes,
you know.
absolutely. Okay, so is there any, and I'm going to guess too, this is probably individualized, but is there any common like themes that you tend to see amongst people for like blocks that come up and stuff like that too?
I would say the I'm not enough theme is a huge
Yeah,
one. Abandonment or a feeling of no support is
yeah,
another huge one. And not loving themselves
yes,
is another huge one. And they're both kind of all they're all
yeah,
kind of really big umbrella terms because I mean just the feeling of abandonment. A
yes,
baby that's crying in its crib and the parent doesn't come and pick them out. So, say children that have been raised in the cry it out method, they
yeah.
grow into these adults who are like, I'm still screaming and no one's coming to help me.
Why isn't
Right?
anyone listening to me? Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. And then there's also, very obvious abandonment where, perhaps dad left when you were in mom's stomach or he
yeah,
left when you were 7 years old or whatever.
yeah,
And then there's those times as well where people have experienced abuse and parents haven't been there to protect them. And that
right.
creates a sense of abandonment as well. And then, of course, maybe you're at school and someone's really mean to you. And again, no one's there to protect you. So you feel
Yeah,
abandoned again, you know? And then the part that a lot of people don't realize is a lot of times that abandonment wound, it's connected as well to how many times have you abandoned yourself? How many times have you abandoned your own voice, your own heart, your own wants, your own needs, etc.? Because we look at everyone else as doing this to us, but a lot of times we have to go, how am I doing this to myself?
that is such a good perspective that it's true. Like, I'm just having this aha moment because I feel like not a lot of people think of that again. Because a lot of times, if we're having this feeling of abandonment, we look again back to that external and like, this has happened to me, or this person's done this to me, or I'm feeling triggered because this is coming up. But yet, we never consider the times that we're abandoning ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And it
Yeah.
can be heartbreaking to come to that realization when you look back through your life and all of the times that you've abandoned yourself or you've turned away from yourself.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's in moments of survival. right? That I need to
Yep.
choose this or else. And I mean, sometimes survival is absolutely true. And sometimes survival is, I'm going to
What
die
we
if I don't do this choice or
yeah.
whatever it might be, right? Um, and it can be heartbreaking to realize that we've been the creator of our own lives.
Yes.
And we've created this abandonment to happen over and over again. But again, it replays that story that we've bought into, or that limiting belief that we've bought into, that I'm worthy or I'm unworthy of having people stick around.
Yes.
Everyone's going to abandon me, including myself.
Well, and I'm unworthy of my dreams probably comes up a lot too, I would imagine, because again,
Yeah,
people are abandoning their dreams because of the fear or the worthiness piece too.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so what other types of offerings kind of do you have? So I know you have like individual ones, you have like the group one. Like I saw on your website you host events. Like I feel like you do a multitude of things
I
too.
do. I
Yeah.
do. So yeah, there's the individual services that people can book in for one-on-one work. And then I have the membership, which is more of like a group working.
Yeah.
And my husband and I have just started a series called Creating Conscious Relationships. So as we were
Very
talking,
cool.
yes, it's really awesome. As we were talking before we started the recording, I had just done the Camino back like September to November.
Yeah.
And it's a spiritual pilgrimage that I took on my own. But as I was taking this pilgrimage on my own on the other side of the world, he was here doing the work, taking care of the kids and all of that sort of stuff. And he started having his own spiritual awakening, and it was
Oh.
like mimicking my own journey. And so he's just completely broken open to this like brand new man. And he was
Yes.
like, I've been after him for years. I'm like, you've got so much wisdom to share. You need to share this with people. And he was like, no, 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 no. And as I was walking the Camino, he's like, it's time. We need to get on there. We need to start sharing our story. We need to start, helping people to raise their own consciousness. I'm like, yes,
Yes, it
finally.
took me going away, but however it happened, right?
Exactly, exactly. And he actually said that to me. He was like, you went on this spiritual pilgrimage to find yourself, and what you did was actually help me find myself.
How beautiful
Uh,
is that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So
Yeah.
we're doing these free conversations every Sunday night where we hop on Zoom and we
Yeah.
just talk about creating conscious relationships and what that's looked like in our own relationship with each other as a partnership, but then also how that transcends to relationships with family members, with your friends, with clients, however it might be,
Yeah.
and raising your own consciousness to help transcend other relationships.
That's amazing. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that journey that's going you're on, and amazing to see like what kind of offers and stuff probably come out of that too.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, right now we're just kind of going, let's see where this takes us. We've
Yeah.
committed to it for a year and we'll see where this
Where it
takes us
goes
and
from
what that
there.
becomes. Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of also again the fun. I feel like of like the business entrepreneurial side of things. It's like we have this thing, this feels good in the moment. Let's continue serving and doing this aspect kind
Yes.
of thing.
Yes. That's actually a big theme for us this year is about serving, giving back.
Yeah.
And because we feel, or I feel, that I've consumed a lot. You know,
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
taken in a lot. I've learned a lot. Even on social media, I'll scroll and I'll take it all in. And
Yeah.
this year is about how much can I give back? You know?
Absolutely. Yes. And sharing your gifts even more to the world in your voice.
Yes.
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 Absolutely. Yes. Okay. So for any of our listeners, what's kind of like one thing that you hope for them to kind of take away from our time here together today?
Essentially, that you can heal yourself. You have all of the answers that you need within yourself as long as you're willing to look at yourself with radical self-honesty,
Yeah.
and without judgment, without shame, without blame, that it, when you give yourself that permission to go within to meet those parts of yourself that are still hurting, that are still struggling with whatever pains or whatever, you can heal that. And sometimes we become so attached to what our experiences have been that we don't give ourselves permission to just step into the present moment. The past is over.
Yes.
So us replaying the pain, yes, it reminds us we went through that pain, but it's really not allowing us to grow and become the fullness of who we potentially can become. And I don't want to disregard the pain. We need to honor the fact that the pain is there, but to also be willing to let that pain go so you can see who you are without it.
Allow yourself to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your
Thank you.
message. I know for our listeners, there's so many good wisdoms about, allowing yourself to heal, and it's okay, and the change and the growth. So I'll be sure to include your website on the show notes as well. Where else can people kind of like find you? Do you have anything else? I know. So on Sundays, is it on Zoom? Like, where can people find you and stuff too?
Okay, so the Sunday night calls with my husband, they're happening on Zoom. You can sign up for those weekly on my
Okay.
website, www.compassionwithcatherine.com, under the Work With Me button. And the membership, you can also join the membership through that
Yep.
same website that I just listed. And then on social media, I'm Catherine Graham, Compassion with Catherine.
Perfect. So I'll include like your Instagram account on the show notes
Yeah,
as well too. So that's
awesome.
wonderful. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today. I really
Thank
loved
you,
this
Amy.
conversation.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.